Good morning, children. Today we are going to learn a chapter from history, 11th chapter, the modern age in Europe. We start with the Renaissance. So what is this Renaissance means and its definition first? So the term Renaissance is derived from the Latin word renascere, R-E-N-A-S-C-E-N-R-E. And the literal meaning of the word Renaissance in French is rebirth or revival. So what is that rebirth indicates? The rebirth indicates a revival of interest in the ideals of classical civilizations of Greece and Rome in the later medieval period. In short, we can say that it is the revival or the rebirth of ancient classics of Greek and Romans. Got it, children? And this Renaissance, it is a transitional movement in Europe. That means here the end of the medieval period and beginning of modern age in Europe. So we can say that this Renaissance brought a remarkable changes in Europe and marked the beginning of the modern era. That is why the historians call this as a transitional movement. Then the definition. What is the definition for this Renaissance? Renaissance means rebirth or revival of interest in the ideas and ideals which inspired new developments in the field of thought, science, literature and arts. So during the medieval period, you know that Europe was in dark age for 1,000 years and there was absolutely no progress in any field. So with the beginning of Renaissance, so the scenario of the European history has changed. So lot of changes in their thought, science, literature as well as in the arts. Okay, children, now let us know the various reasons that begins Renaissance in Europe. Now let us know the causes of Renaissance. So there are several causes. According to the syllabus, we are going to learn only the two. In that, the first one is the new trade routes. It is nothing but the geographical explorations, or you say the discoveries. So here, which were the European nations were the first to start the geographical exploration? They are that Portugal and the Spain. You could see that the navigators of Portugal and Spain played an important part in the geographical explorations and discovering the new trade routes. So what was the reason? So why did Europeans feel that they should find a new sea route to the eastern countries? So here is the reason. Constantinople fell into the hands of the Turks, Ottoman Turks in 1453. So the trade route between the east and the west were completely closed. That means here the Arabs and the Turks, they closed both land route as well as the sea route to the eastern countries. So as a result, the European traders and the navigators felt the need for discovering the new sea routes. So this is the reason. And who are the Europeans who encouraged for this navigation, or you say that exploration? It was that Prince Henry was popularly known as Henry the Navigator. He started the navigation school between 1394 and 1460, and he started a navigational school and he trained many explorers, or you say the sailors, and he sent one such sailor. What was his name? Bartholomew Dias. The Portuguese sailor Bartholomew Dias reached the southernmost tip of Africa in 1486 and he named it. That means here Prince Henry named the southernmost tip of Africa as Cape of Good Hope. Actually Bartholomew Dias Cape of Storm, but Henry, he got an a good as the beginning, so he kept it as Cape of Good Hope. So the next another sailor who got the support from the Queen of Spain, and he discovered, that means who is that? Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. Later on, you know that following his steps, another sailor, Amerigo Vespucci, he explored. Christopher Columbus discovered America, but Amerigo Vespucci explored America. That is why America's named after Amerigo Vespucci, that we know. Then next in 1498, another Portuguese sailor, you know that, who reached India. He was none other than Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama sailed around the continent of Africa. Means in your lower classes you have already studied that. He followed the steps of, that means the route of Bartholomew Dias, but he did not return back, and he sailed forward and he reached the coast of Calicut in India in 1498. So with this, Vasco da Gama's discovery of the new route to India started a trade transaction between the European countries and India. Then next, that Ferdinand Magellan, you know that he had a voyage, circumnavigation, a vast voyage around the world, and reached the vast ocean, and he called the vast ocean as the Pacific Ocean. Then due to these discoveries, now we are going to learn the impact. This is the most important part in this course. What was the impact of the geographical discoveries or the new trade routes? So due to these geographical discoveries or the new trade routes, contact between the East and the West began to develop, and there was a fusion of ideas. That means the exchange of ideas. Then secondly, opening of new trade routes not only encouraged trade, but also created a spirit of adventure and also broadened the mental horizon of the people. Got it, children? These are the two impacts. One is here, the trade transaction between the East and the West started. Another, exchange of the ideas. Then created a spirit of adventure and broadened the mental horizon. This was the impact of geographical discoveries. Got it? Next we move to the printing press. Now we are learning the invention of the printing press. So what is the role played by the printing press and what's its impact in the spreading of Renaissance movement? So the invention of the printing press. So the first printing press was set up in Germany by Johannes Gutenberg. The complete name of Gutenberg is Johannes Gutenberg, in the middle of 15th century. Later on, the same printing machine was introduced in England by William Caxton. Caxton's complete name was William Caxton. So then, what is the impact of this printing press? Introduction of the printing press. So the invention of printing press in the middle of the 15th century in Europe made it possible to produce books in large number. So you know that handwritten, compared to the handwritten scripts, the printed books printed in a large number. Then the very next thing is here, the Bible and many other religious and the classical books were printed and made available all over Europe. Then the printing press spread knowledge far and wide. As more and more printing books, it was easy for them to spread the knowledge far and wide, and the scholars also found it easier to read printed books than the unwritten manuscripts. So what was the condition in the Middle Age? The books were very few and they were beyond the reach of the ordinary people because they were all manuscripts written by hand. Now the printing press enabled people of Europe to multiply. That means enabled Europe to multiply books. That means they could able to procure more and more books and put them within the reach of people. Then the printing and distribution of books influence the people's attitude. That means what is the impact of printing press? The printing and distribution of books influenced people's attitude to life and brought about a new awakening in Europe. Earlier you know that the Europeans believed in the superstitious blind belief. They gave much priority to the church and the church doctrines. Now they started thinking about the practical life and brought about a new awakening in Europe. So these are the two causes we are going to learn in this topic. Next we are going to learn the impact of Renaissance on various fields. In this one, three main things we are going to take: literature, art, and then the science. Okay. Now we start with the impact of Renaissance on art. Mainly your many painters and the artists are there, but we are going to learn only about Leonardo da Vinci. Earlier we had the three main artists: Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo and Raphael. But this academic year it is only Leonardo da Vinci included. So we are learning about Leonardo da Vinci. Who was he? What type of contribution he gave to the field of art? So this Leonardo da Vinci was a great painter, sculptor, musician and a scientist. That means he was an versatile person, and his contribution in painting and the sculpting techniques, and he trained in the mechanical arts. That means he used the tools also while doing the painting or the sculpting. Then he studied nature, mechanics, anatomy, physics, architecture as well as weaponry. Weaponry means don't think that he learned the warfare. Here various types of tools used in the painting or in that sculptor. Then he saw both science and the art as the complementary rather than the distinct disciplines. That means he did not find the difference between the art and the science, and he looked both the subjects complementary to each other. And not only that, when he was a small boy around the age of 15, his father recognized his talent and he put this boy under a efficient the painter Andrea del Verrocchio of Florence. So he had a good training. So for a decade, Da Vinci refined his painting and sculpting techniques and trained in mechanical arts. Then after that, as he was growing older, his interest ranged far behind the art. He studied nature, mechanics, anatomy, physics, architecture and weaponry, and he saw science and art as complementary rather than the distinct disciplines, and thought that the ideas formulated in one reign could and should inform the other. And he spent a great deal of time immersing himself in nature, testing scientific laws, dissecting bodies, both human and animal, and thinking and writing about his observations. Then, at some point in the early of 1490s, Da Vinci began filling his notebook related to 4 broad themes. So, they were that painting, architecture, mechanics and human anatomy, creating thousands of pages of neatly drawn illustrations. That means whatever the theme, or you say that the topic selected by him, it was clearly shown in his illustrations. Then his popular paintings. The popular paintings of Leonardo da Vinci were Virgin of Rocks, The Last Supper and Mona Lisa. These are the great masterpieces of art created by Leonardo da Vinci. So for further pictures and all, you could refer your textbook, page number 100. There you can see that Virgin of Rocks, and page number 101 you could see that Last Supper and also that Mona Lisa. Got it? So the new techniques which were adopted by Leonardo da Vinci gave a fine feeling of reality. Till then, you know that in the medieval period, all these art were confined to the religious matter. They were propagating, and the sculptures served as a tool for propagating the religion, and the colors used by the painters were also strictly regulated. But during this Renaissance period, they started the painting which looks natural and the real one. That is what here the contribution of Leonardo da Vinci. Next we move to the impact of Renaissance on literature. Now we are going to learn the impact of Renaissance on literature. So the most significant impact of Renaissance on literature was the use of local languages. Instead of Latin as in the Middle Ages. You know that Middle Ages was dominated by the Latin language. Now with this Renaissance movement, local languages were given importance. You can say that vernacular languages. Besides, there was a change of themes in the literary work also. Earlier writers built on spiritual themes, including heaven. However, during Renaissance, the authors wrote on man and his problems. Such emphasis on man gave birth to a new movement known as humanism. That means here people started thinking about the universal fact and the reality, and their work also related to the practical life of man rather than the illusions. So in that we are going to learn the contribution of William Shakespeare. So who was this William Shakespeare? He was an English poet, playwright, as well as the actor, and he was regarded as the greatest writer in English language and the world's preeminent dramatist. So he is often called England's national poet and the bard of Avon. And he wrote 38 plays, 154 sonnets, and 2 long narrative poems, and also few other verses. With the exception of Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare's first plays were mostly historical dramas, and the names are mentioned there: Richard II, Henry VI, and Henry V. And later he wrote several comedies also, that means in his early period. So the comedy, these books are A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, As You Like It, and The 12th Night. And it was only after 1600 he wrote tragedies like Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, and Macbeth. Finally, what is the impact of Shakespeare on literature? Shakespeare's work transcends culture and history. He appeals to emotions and thoughts that are a part of eternal human nature and therefore have a universal appeal. Means all his novels, dramas, plays, they contain the humanism, that means the natural way of living of the people. Beginning he had that romantic plays also, later on the comedy dramas also, even the historical dramas you could see. Later on in his last life he started writing the tragedies also. Totally his contribution to the English language is very remarkable. Now the impact of Renaissance on science. Here also you could see that Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, so many other scientists, but we are going to learn only about Nicholas Copernicus. So Nicholas Copernicus was a scientist of Poland. He is from Poland. He was a mathematician as well as an astronomer. So he formulated a model of the universe that placed the sun rather than the earth at the center of the universe, and the publication of this model in his book. What is the name of the book? You can see that it is De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium, meaning here on the revolutions of the celestial spheres. Just before this means this book was uh, published just before his death in 1453, which is regarded as a major event in the history of science and triggered the Copernicus revolution. So the theory propounded by Copernicus came to be known as heliocentric theory or Copernican theory. So his theory is based on the following facts. So what are those? There is no one center of all celestial circles or spheres. The center of the earth is not the center of the universe, but only a gravity and of the lunar sphere. All the spheres revolve around the sun as their midpoint, and therefore the sun is the center of the universe. The earth has more than one motion, turning on its axis and moving in a spherical orbit around the sun. Later on, a German scientist, Kepler, who proved the earth and the other planets move around the sun not in a circle but in an elliptical orbit. That means here the other scientists who supported Copernicus were Galileo as well as Kepler. So this is about the Copernican theory, or you say the heliocentric theory. Got it, children? So with this we have completed the explanation of this.